was a 3.5-hour hearing, not the longest we've ever had, but certainly a comprehensive hearing. And let me say at the beginning of this that some of the issues we heard testimony about today were a little above our pay grade. A lot of social planning was discussed today, a lot of ways to improve the quality of life of the entire neighborhood. It obviously involves more than one liquor license. It involves more than one city block that's going to solve the perceived problems of the neighborhood. So the board has considered that information, and we're doing with it what we can. We first obviously heard from Mr. Austin, who spent 40 years in the industry, in the restaurant and bar industry. He discussed the concept, introduced a menu, a floor plan, and other information, which, at least as of the photos, looks to be indeed an upscale bar and restaurant, which would serve sausages, bratwurst, slicewurst, and other menu items that are not common in the city of Baltimore anymore. So he discussed the fact that they're planning to put $150,000 into a kitchen, which certainly does appear to be a commitment to food service. He was unclear on what kind of, on the details of security for the establishment. He'd indicated that he himself had not reached out to the community for input. We only had one witness from the applicant side, and we did receive a comprehensive petition with members of the local community and of the greater Baltimore community in support of the application. We determined, although it was not on the application, Mr. Foti, the co-applicant, has a 1% interest in the project. We then heard from a lot of other people from Federal Hill, most from Federal Hill specifically, including Mr. Dvorak Fisher, who is the Liquor License Advisory Chairman of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, and also happens to be employed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We did, in fact, qualify him as an expert, although, you know, in hindsight, looking at this evidence, I don't know that he's required to be qualified as an expert. He basically went and pulled liquor board files and pulled fire department certificates and, you know, doing the kind of things that we could all do as long as we were nicely organized, had a good spreadsheet. He didn't opine, didn't give too many opinions. It was straight facts as far as what appears to be an increase in the number of bar stools in Federal Hill. So he spent a lot of time doing something that we appreciated for doing, but I think we all pretty much knew the answer before he embarked on that project. We all know there's more bar stools in Federal Hill than there was in 2003 or 2007. When we sit up here, we see where the applications come from. We see where people want to open bars and restaurants. So it's not a major surprise. I think that his testimony as a lay witness was perhaps just as important in that he routinely, he discussed the quality of life 4 blocks away from Cross Street, and that it had deteriorated, that the noise and the trash, parking situation was intolerable. We then heard from Mr. Costello, the president of the Neighborhood Association in Federal Hill. He indicated, and indeed, he stands in solidarity with Sharp Leadenhall. We received a letter of opposition from the president thereof. Federal Hills South Neighborhood Association stands with Mr. Costello in his opposition to this project. The South Baltimore Neighborhood Association and President Amy Much wrote a letter into evidence. And finally, the Otterbein Community Association supported the opposition as well. Mr. Costello indicates that the opposition primarily rests on the issue of capacity, that this is a major expansion with a possible 293-person capacity on Cross Street, which indeed would make it one of the largest restaurants in Federal Hill overnight. Mr. Costello discussed the failure of the parties to reach an agreement. He testified that he was effectively told by an investor in the project that there would be no MOU, not negotiable, that this was a done deal, and that the investors were not here to ask for community support. Later, we heard from him regarding destruction of property and other concerns that the number of bars in the neighborhood he believed were responsible for many of the nuisance crimes that are described more fully in the exhibit from the Baltimore City Police Department's calls for service form regarding the unit block of East Cross Street. We heard from Ms. Judy O'Brien from the Downtown Business Family Alliance, which has a membership of 3,000 families or more, and at least, I think Ms. O'Brien testified, 1,200 of them in South Baltimore alone. This is a group that we don't remember ever getting any correspondence from at all. They usually don't involve themselves in liquor board issues. So I think it was just a bit of a surprise to the board that they've come out and decided that they're here for this hearing, and we're not here to determine why they came out, but they indicate that there are constant complaints of parents who want to leave the neighborhood, of noise, of inappropriate activity or inappropriate behavior by bar patrons, including neighbors, that their children witness. We also heard from Sally Borak Fisher, who has a 5-year-old daughter, who also testified the problem of noise, trash, and the inability to allow her daughter to sleep with her window open. Mr. Bill Romani has lived a half a block from Cross Street Market for quite some time. He talked about balance and the mix that he believed that the neighborhood once had and believes that it's lacking. He too testified to many of the nuisance and more serious quality of life problems that they believe that the capacity issue on the unit block of Cross Street has caused. But we heard from Baltimore City Police Officer Martin Runk from the Southern District. He effectively, in addition to having the board watch a video regarding closing time, he described it as mass chaos, basically telling us that we are dispersing these patrons out into the neighborhood to make room so we have safety in front of the bars on East Cross Street. We heard from Virginia Gerhardt, who is the Parking Committee co-chair of the Federal Hill Neighborhood Association. She claims parking has reached a crisis level in the neighborhood. Finally, we heard from Mr. Ed Kelly, who was concerned about trash and parking issues, as he would be one of the closest neighbors to the expanded bar and premises. Finally, we heard from Councilman Cole with respect to his comments on Mr. Romani's comments about feeling that there was a lack of balance between liquor selling businesses and other businesses in the neighborhood. Later, we did hear from Mr. Pullman, who indicated that his client was willing to enter into some voluntary license restrictions, to wit, requiring food receipts of 25%, something that is simply not required under anyone who possesses a BD7 license. A BD7 license means you don't even have to serve a German pretzel if you don't want to. It can just be straight alcohol. They agreed that they would make a portion of their receipts to be required as food. They also made offers to hire valets and spend $500 a weekend to attempt to ameliorate the parking situation. Agreed to waive any formal application for live entertainment for a year, and also to close the patio, the outdoor portion, certainly before the close of business. So, very mixed feelings personally about this case. On one level, I see these drawings, and we say this looks wonderful. I would probably take my family. This looks neat. But I wonder, has anybody ever been to Germany? Well, then you may wonder about us. Have any of us been to Cross Street at closing time? So that's, at the end of the day, we are looking at public media's eye, and we're not looking to what looks like something that would interest me or Commissioner Smith or Commissioner Jones on paper. So we've got petitions on both sides with lots of support, alleged support on both sides. We're considering all that. What is unprecedented, and I see several community association heads out there today, is community associations don't always agree on everything. Within their own community association, not with the community association across the way. In this case, we quite frankly have unprecedented cohesion and support for denying this transfer. Both Federal Hill Neighborhood Association, Federal Hill South, this is the South Baltimore neighborhood, Sharp Leadenhall, and Otterbein, and Downtown Baltimore Family Alliance. It's apparent that something went wrong here. There's some disconnect. It could be a situation of bad timing where other applicants or other licensees have ruined it for you down there. It could be a situation with a personality conflict. We do not believe that due diligence was done in the sense that there needed to be more community input. If this was simply turning the key to Turner's and just starting up the same scope of project, I don't think we would expect exhaustive work with the community to make it happen. But this is a big project. As I say, with a capacity of 293 persons, there needs to be more feedback, more give and take between the residents, many of who are lifetime residents, and the owners of this project. We clearly find that there is not a public need and desire for this transfer and expansion at this time. We do believe that, despite argument by council, that there is a potential uniqueness of services and products that you could offer. We do believe that this would be nothing like the beer garden at Power Plant Live. We believe that this project appears on its face to be a place that could be a successful part of the community, but not right now. We're not right there on Cross Street, and not right now. So we do find that there are issues relating to public safety, health, and welfare. That the parking co-chair, for example, describing the complete tipping point of parking in the neighborhood. There are issues of petty crime that continue to come up. there is the debate over whether vacancy attracts crime or whether patrons attract crime. We are not here to solve that riddle today. What we do know is that there is unprecedented community opposition to this transfer, and therefore the transfer expansion wanted to be denied. Thank you very much. Your motion is also denied.
Is there a vote breakdown?
Yes, the vote was unanimous. Thank you. We're off the record. We're adjourned.